A wildly popular new Netflix documentary series has fans calling for the release of a convicted killer. The series, Making a Murderer, focuses on the story of Stephen Avery. He and his nephew, Brendan Dassey, are both serving life sentences for the murder of Teresa Halbach. The show explores the possibility that they were framed, but the former prosecutor in the case says key evidence was left out of the documentary.
What do you think is the most persuasive evidence you had against him that the series makers left out?
Well, in my opinion, the most persuasive was the DNA that was found on the hood latch of the victim's car. The victim's SUV is hidden by Mr. Avery and Mr. Dassey, and actually Brendan Dassey, during his confession, tells law enforcement for the first time that his Uncle Stephen went under the hood.
Halbach disappeared in 2005. She was supposed to meet Avery at his home to take pictures of a vehicle for a magazine. Joining us now with the latest on this case, Eric Guster, a criminal defense attorney, and Yodit Tewolde, a criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. So let's talk about your former prosecutor's experience here. There are hundreds of thousands of people who are petitioning the White House, petitioning the county for a new trial. But is there anything that would suggest that he should get one right now other than a documentary?
So essentially, there's a difference between actual innocence and a wrongful conviction. Actual innocence means that a person may not have or did not commit a crime. Wrongful conviction can mean that a person was wrongfully convicted, which would warrant a new trial. Now, we don't know whether Avery is innocent of this murder, but there is evidence to suggest that he may have been wrongfully convicted, and that is by that juror that came forward.
The juror who has come forward and said after the fact, doesn't want to be identified, but apparently called the filmmakers ahead of time and said, you know, I was in that jury room, I didn't want to vote for a conviction, but I felt pressured as well.
And that's one of the problems with our jury system. When jurors do not dig their heels in and say, I don't believe this person is guilty and I'm not going to vote guilty, that is the failure. Because I've seen cases where jurors will come back and say, you know, I really want to change my mind, but this is my vote. Because in every trial that a guilty verdict is reached, the judge will do what's called polling the jurors. The judge will ask, is this your true verdict of each and every juror? And they must acknowledge that. So that juror actually lied under oath that that is their actual verdict.
The former prosecutor, Ken Kratz, who Megyn Kelly was talking to there, says that there are a couple of things he would do differently if he had to try this case over again. He held a big news conference ahead of the trial in which he laid out, you know, some of the evidence. People say that tainted the jury pool.
Absolutely.
And he also says he would not have involved the police department from the town of Manitowoc because there were officers who had been involved in the previous conviction against Stephen Avery, officers who were still investigating him on this murder case.
Right, and that's a no-brainer. When you're laying out evidence that you are getting from a department that wrongfully convicted somebody, that is just an obvious mistake to make.
And was being sued by him civilly.
And was currently being sued. So it definitely was a no-brainer for the prosecution, I think, to avoid presenting evidence, but then again, they did get a conviction. And I think that was what the defense was harping on and used as a defense to say that they are actually presenting evidence from a police department that targeted Avery.
Avery apparently has an IQ of about 70, not, you know, entirely intellectually there. His nephew, who was also convicted with him, apparently is even in worse shape intellectually, and was interrogated for some time by police officers without any kind of an attorney present.
And John, that is the thing that bothers me the most about this conviction, was the nephew was interrogated because his lawyer told the police, hey, go talk to him. Right. His lawyer sent an investigator to actually go and talk to this young man who actually helped him along to give information that actually was not even his true information. So when you have a lawyer who tells the police, go talk to him without me, that lawyer never should practice law, should have never been involved in this trial. And that confession, that statement should have been kept out, and the judge was wrong in allowing
And
that.
he was a minor. I mean, you don't send a minor to go speak to law enforcement. I mean, he was being led and fed these questions to answer a certain way.
Is that not enough to bring about a new trial?
With the nephew's case, yes. The judge erred in allowing that statement in because the attorney, who was actually brought before the commission, and the attorney was not disbarred, was not disciplined, which that attorney probably should have been. Because when that attorney actually got the case, and before talking to his client, gave media interviews actually saying, my client is guilty of this, but it's his uncle's fault. That's a problem with the overall factors in this case.
Ken Kratz, the former prosecutor, was offered an opportunity to participate in the documentary, but he didn't take it. And now he's saying, oh, this is a very one-sided production. You didn't hear all of the evidence.
You know, while I'm glad that this series, this show, is bringing to the forefront the injustice in the criminal justice system and how it's so easy for people to fall prey to, prosecutorial misconduct, to improper police interrogation techniques, that sometimes this justice system isn't blind. But we have to remember that this was put together from a one-sided perspective. I mean, the producers or the creators spent so much time with Avery's family that it is kind of one-sided. And at the end of the day, a show is concerned with ratings. So we do have to remember that.
This is not a criminal courtroom.
Correct.
Yodit Tewolde, Eric Guster, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.